I've had a couple of clients recently say to me, Will, we can't enforce our safety rules because we're struggling with recruitment. If we piss them off, they might leave. Yeah, okay, I get it. So there's a fear of having difficult, awkward conversations because all of a sudden there's a shortage of all kinds of staff. Shortage of engineers, manufacturing operatives, printers, forklift drivers, welders. There's a shortage of everything. I'm looking for a digital marketing person. There's a shortage of them too. I know the feeling. And yet, is this a reason to compromise on our standards? Well, maybe it could be, but there's an old saying, it's like, choose your poison. Because you can't just decide to not enforce standards without consequences. There's a poison and you have to choose it. So you either choose to relax and take whatever consequences come about as a result of that, or you choose to enforce your standards, your safety standards, and take whatever consequences come about. Now, I'll be perfectly honest, I don't buy this argument of if we enforce standards they might leave. To me, it just sounds like an excuse. It really does. It sounds a little bit weak, to be honest. I think people respect firm leadership. They expect a leader who holds them to account, sets a standard, and the standard's consistent and fair. People respect that. They kind of like it. I think most of us crave that, to be perfectly honest. So I think if it's done well, done professionally, fairly, consistently, with a bit of tact, then I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. Here's another thing. Let's go dig into the root causes of this a little bit. There's an old saying, and I think it goes like this: conflict delayed is conflict multiplied. So what's the root cause? The root cause is that these organizations, and maybe one of yours as well, they have been unwilling to enforce safety standards for some years. They were unwilling in the past, and people have become accustomed to working unsafely, taking shortcuts, not following rules, working with machines with guards open, not wearing PPE, that kind of thing. And they've become accustomed to this. And so over time, it's become a bit of a habit, it's become expected. And now, all of a sudden, because you've had some training with me, you've decided you want to crack down on the rules. But now it feels like a harsh yanking of the leash. See, the longer you deviate from the normal standard of behavior, the bigger that deviation becomes and the harder it is to pull people back to the norm. So the earlier you intervene, the better it becomes, the easier it is, the less conflicts there is in the grand scheme of things. Nip it in the bud, that is the expression that we use, isn't it? It's not just conflicts delayed, which leads to conflict multiplied, it's problems as well. If you delay sorting out a problem, then the problem eventually gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So nip these things in the bud. Now, how should you address it? Well, use the minimal necessary force to achieve the desired result. We don't need to go barging in like a bull in a china shop and start aggressively tackling people. We need to understand that if these people have not been following the rules, that's not their fault, that's our fault. As managers, if people don't behave the way they're supposed to, that's not their fault, it's our fault. Take some responsibility for it. Maybe admit that. Admit that to them when you start to yank the leash a little bit. Say, listen, this is what we've been doing and I have to take responsibility for this. You said, I've allowed us to behave in this way. This is my fault. What I would like to do as of now, I've come to realize after doing this training with Will, whatever training it was, I've come to realize that actually this is quite a significant risk to you and to me and to the organization. And would you agree that if there is a risk and there is something sensible, reasonable that we can do, we should do it in order to reduce that risk? Most people would agree to that. They might not agree to wearing the PPE or operating machines with guards closed, but they can agree that we should do sensible things, reasonable things to reduce risk. Right, once you get them to agree to that, let's take it a little bit further and say, and would you agree when operating this machine with the guards open, there is a risk that this could happen or that could happen, and hopefully they'll agree to that. And if they don't agree to that, well, show them the PUWER regulations, show them the PUWER ACOP, explain to them how the law works on this, explain to them that dangerous parts of machinery should be fully enclosed wherever practicable, not reasonably practicable, practicable. Explain what that means, explain the risks of prosecution. Get them to agree that it's not good if the company gets prosecuted. You see, phrase the questions, get them to agree and agree and agree. That could be a yes type question, said yes, I agree. Or it could be, you wouldn't want that, would you? And you go, no, I wouldn't want that. All right, you wouldn't want the company to get prosecuted, would you? No, I wouldn't want that. All right, and you wouldn't want to get entangled, would you? Right, so what would be a reasonable thing to do? And you should try and end, wherever possible, by asking them what the solution is. Ask them, what would be the reasonable thing to do then in this situation? Now, hopefully, they'll say exactly what you want them to say. Sometimes, though, they'll come up with a different idea. And if that idea is a good one, perhaps you should just run with it. Anyway, enjoy yourself.